as a society should help with them.
Sue Moroney.
Mr Chair. Mr Chair, this bill that we have in front of us, and particularly Part 2 of the bill that we have in front of us, just shows how much of a failure yesterday's budget was, because we always expect to be debating taxation after a budget, and this is the bill that does that. But if yesterday's budget was a fair budget, then we would be debating the $9.1 billion that was given away in tax cuts last budget to the top 10% of wage earners in this country. If it is true, and I think everyone believes and knows that, yes, we are in tough fiscal times. The government has not been able to grow the economy. They haven't actually risen to that challenge, and we have got very difficult fiscal times in New Zealand because of the economic mismanagement of the current government. But we all accept that. We all accept that that's where we are. And if that is the case and we all have to tighten our belts, then why is it that this bill only asks hard-working New Zealand families to tighten their belts, while the top 10% of wage earners continue to have $9.1 billion worth of tax cuts untouched, even in these tough economic times? Because what that means, Mr Chair, and this gets to the basic unfairness of what this government is doing, that means that the Prime Minister, John Key, gets to keep his additional $1,000 a week that he got in last year's tax cuts. $1,000 a week. That's more than some people earn, but that's how much more extra he got in tax cuts from last year's budget. He gets to keep that. But hard-working New Zealanders get to pay for that government's folly by having their money for KiwiSaver cut in this budget. So hard-working wage earners are the people who suffer through this part of this bill, because this part of this bill attacks KiwiSaver. It attacks KiwiSaver, and it also attacks working for families. And it's absolutely clear by now, Mr Chair, that only a Labour-led government can save KiwiSaver, because this government's not interested in saving KiwiSaver. Ever since it took office, it has diminished KiwiSaver in every single angle that it possibly can. So it started off by diminishing KiwiSaver by cutting the contributions in half. So cutting it from 4% savings down to 2%, 4% contributions down to 2% contributions. So immediately on taking office, this government cut KiwiSaver in half. But not content with that, the very next thing they did with regard to superannuation and the future of savings in this country was that they immediately suspended payments and contributions from the taxpayer into the New Zealand Superannuation Fund. The fund that there was a multi-party agreement on, that we would continue to put money into to make sure that when us baby boomers get into the area of superannuation, that there is enough money in the government coffers to pay for that. Forward thinking by Michael Cullen to get a multi-party accord, to get agreement that we would save, we would put taxpayer money, forward fund it, so that we had money in there when all of us baby boomers needed that money for superannuation. This government took the knife to that as soon as they took office. So the multi-party agreement the ink was hardly dry when the new government came into place, and it broke that accord straight away. So their record on superannuation is terrible, and it continues with Part 2 of this bill. Because here's what they're doing. They are saying times are tough, we haven't been able to, the government says we haven't got our act together, we haven't been able to grow the economy, we haven't got that lift that we've been promising for 2.5 years now, but it's still not with us. So we've got to start taking the knife to government spending. And where are the areas that they've chosen? Not tax cuts for very, very high earners in this country, not tax cuts for the wealthy. You will not hear any member of the government on that side of this House even mention the word. It's like, please don't mention the war. Let's try and pretend that people didn't get these huge tax cuts in the last budget. Because while the government tries to pretend that everyone's got to tighten their belts, That is not the case for all New Zealanders. For the vast majority, New Zealanders are finding the current economic situation very, very tough indeed. Very tough.